Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sayan. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me, guys, to learn and to grow. As always, quick favor to ask right off the top, if you get any value from this episode or if you've received value from previous episodes, please do share it with a friend, send a link, take a screenshot, throw it up on Instagram, tag me and tag my amazing guest, Dr. Matt Geller, to let people know what we talked about and what you found valuable. And if you don't know Matt, well, you might not, because Matt has gone into hiding the last few years, right, Matt? You've just been so low key, but it's cool. Anyways, right. Matt is the founder and CEO of EyesOnEyecare, which is one of the biggest kind of media outlets in the eye care industry, previously known as New Grad Optometry and Covalent Careers. Matt is the true definition of an entrepreneur in the eye care space. And so I'm really excited, finally, Matt, after all these years, I think, of wanting to have you on and get you on to kind of tap into that brain of yours. So thanks for coming on the podcast, dude. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And, just props to all that you're doing and working hard towards. I see it, and you're doing a great job, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Before we went live, I saw Matt decided to crack a beer. So I decided I'm going to do the same. So cheers to you.
Local.
We're both drinking something local. What are you drinking there, Matt?
I've got the Colsham Brewing Company Winter Ale.
So that's local to where you are. And I'm going to tell people where that is in just a second. I got the Steamworks Brewing Pale Ale here, local company here, Steamworks. So that would, just a few months ago, that beer was not local to you because you were down in Southern California.
Yep.
And now my man is up here in the Pacific Northwest joining me in the rainy green neighborhoods of, well, I'm just across the border from you, but in Washington State. Welcome, man. Welcome to the Pacific Northwest.
Imagine I moved to Canada. That would be it.
That would be amazing. But what was it? You're like a 40-minute, 45-minute drive from me right now. Isn't that what
Probably even less. I mean, you did the drive, but yeah.
It was easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in Bellingham, Washington now. So I was in San Diego for 10 years, moved up to Bellingham. There's a million reasons why. I think they're all small, but they all added up to be one big reason. Closer to nature, smaller city, just connecting a little bit more with the natural world up here, and got some property to enjoy it all on. And that wasn't the case, in a busy city. Like San Diego is amazing. I'll go back frequently, but it's so cool to be up here and I'm loving it.
It's awesome, man. And I had the pleasure to come and visit you already at your beautiful new home, as I say, out in the sticks.
Yeah.
Man, beautiful property, beautiful house. I'm happy for you. I'm so happy that you're nearby, man. That's actually what I'm most excited about. I wish I could have come over and done this in person, but you're a busy guy, so I got to take it, do this virtually. But I did catch you recently at Vision Expo as well. That was nice. Yep. How'd you find that?
It was great, man. Now that we have a bigger team in place, it's a pleasure to not be the one running around going crazy the whole time. I would just jam-pack days, very, very long days at those shows and kind of do everything. And that's like part of the starting up aspect of things. But, now I get to kind of, select the meetings I want to be in a little bit more, and then, watch the team kind of do their thing, and they're all so fantastic. So it was a really chill meeting for me, but I don't know, maybe my definition of chill is like really busy still. I don't know.
It probably is. Everybody's got their own relative level of chill, and I'm sure yours is a little farther up. But let's rewind the clock, man. I first met you in person at Vision Expo West years ago, 5-6 years ago, probably, maybe even more. But it's been nice to kind of sort of be in touch with New Grad Optometry, Covalent Careers. I was part of some videos and some other content that was created. It was fun to be involved, and it's been really, really cool to watch the company grow and have the impact that it has. It's crazy, man, the level that you guys are at right now. But I want to rewind the clock to the beginning of all of this, man. Let's go back to the beginning of your optometry career, basically. Let's try to tap into that early days of that entrepreneurial spirit and that mind that you had. You went to optometry school and you graduated, and what were you thinking at that time?
Yeah, I mean, in optometry school, that's when it really all started. I started in 2009, but optometrystudents.com was the first endeavor. And I just
You started optometrystudents.com?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Optometrystudents.com was the first project. And I don't know, I just can't sit still, man, is kind of what it is. I want to get my hands deep into things. And I just had goals in life. And I knew that just doing what everyone else did would get me what everyone else got, which was great, but it didn't meet my goals. So I had to do more to achieve those. So optometrystudents.com was the first endeavor. AOA ended up acquiring it about 2 years into the project, which was like,
Wow.
I don't know, serendipitous, luck, hard work, whatever it is, it happened. Then when I graduated, started newgradoptometry.com because like they own that site. And I was like, all right, I'm clearly like doing something right here. And then, just going after the demographic thing. And for those listening, like it may be hard to believe, but back in, 2009, which was optometrystudents.com, and 2013 was when newgradoptometry.com started. There was like no legit voice. There was no Instagram. Like Instagram started, I think, don't quote me, maybe like 2011-ish.
Yeah.
And so like those platforms weren't what they were today, not even close. It was just like people taking photos of cool things, So
Your food mostly.
yeah, so exactly. So filled those niches pretty well. And then, I think it was a big time first mover advantage, and we scaled it into very large digital publication. We've got 40 employees now.
Wow.
Full time, all like US based stuff, engineers, marketers, content creators, sales individuals, like the best team in the world. And so that's where we're at today. But, I think there hasn't been a big digital publication to come along since in optometry, since like Pentavision or BMC. And so it's been kind of like a 15-year gap where there was a void of being a really, like a larger player. And, we are that player now, but it's been an incredible journey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I didn't realize you were optometrystudents.com. That was yours as well. That's very cool. You clearly had that spark from a very early stage.
Yep.
So then you had that, like, what I always want to try to extract from an entrepreneur's mind is you had the drive, but like when you have an idea, what's the gap? I always feel like there's a gap. Lots of people have ideas. What's the gap between, and how do you fill it between having an idea and actually starting that and implementing it?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think's missing in some people's mind that perhaps you had that just you were like, I'm just going to go do this?
People get distracted. The gap they see is too big and they're here and they want to get here. And they try to take way too far of a leap and they try to get there and solve it. And they're missing the fact that all you got to do is go from here to here. And so there's a really good book, The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. And it describes this, I think, perfectly. I read it 2 summers ago. And, if you were tracking a lion in the wild right now, right? The answer of how, like, so you're a guy on foot and you're trying to find a lion. You're trying to find that lion because you want to see him yourself, or maybe it's your job and you want to ultimately alert someone back at the resort. So like, the Jeep could come by and the people can see the lion. That's what those folks do, right? So if you're tracking a lion though, the only thing that you need to worry about is the next track, the next piece, right? You're looking for a paw print. You're looking for a tuft of hair on a tree. You're looking for, droppings, whatever it is, right? You're looking for a dead animal cart. Like you're just worried about the next track. And in the entrepreneurial world, it's all about like the big headlines, the big company. And so you get so psyched out of just trying to get there that you miss what's right in front of you. Right. And so that's like the biggest key. So you have to have your goals and know where you want to end up and what you want that to feel like and be like, but it doesn't necessarily need to be exact. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to know the exact product, the exact service. You can have like just, so you can start that way with goals, but just worry about what's next, just worry it's right in front of you. And I think that's how you kind of close that gap. And it's also part of the entrepreneur's dilemma, I think.
No, that's a good point. Taking those little steps towards that bigger goal, I think. Now I'm trying to think about stuff that I do, for example, a podcast or other stuff. It always starts with like sending a text message or making a phone call or sending an email or something really small like that to just get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Right. And then next thing you know, so somebody responds with, yeah, I can help you with that. Okay, cool. You take that call. Now you get another idea. Let's act on that.
Yeah.
I started the podcast recording in my exam room. I bought a couple of cheap microphones and cheap lights and stuff. And, that's how it started. And it's slowly gotten better and better. I would hope people would think so. But yeah, and you've taken that so obviously to this level where you've created this company. We have 40 employees. That's incredible, man. So tell me about the early days of Covalent Careers, New Grad Optometry. What did that look like? What were you doing? What was behind the scenes? What did you do? You started a website and then like hoped people would come to it? What happened there?
Yeah, I think, the only thing that mattered back then was just the mantra of content is king, right? That has kind of gone by the wayside with the advent of social. And I still think content is king, but like back when it was about SEO and about writing and about like blogging mostly, content is king is all that mattered. And so like I would just slave away at making one piece of content that would just like decimate everyone who was trying to do a similar thing. Like just relentlessly work at that one piece. And then when we put it out, that's exactly what it did. It just like, it was so good. It was not about volume. It was just about quality. I'm into street photography, and this dude that I really like, his handle is like Eaten by Flowers, and he's a street photographer. And like, he has the craziest work ethic when it comes to street photography. And he'll sit in a spot all day long, like waiting for these perfect compositions. And like, literally, it's almost psychotic in a way. It's like insane. But when he captures it, it is just the most incredible thing you can possibly capture. And I enjoy that. I don't know if it's like just some masochistic attitude of just like, but I want to absolutely crush that one thing, whether it's a guide for oral medications and dry eye or whatever the thing is. Like, it's got to just be the top quality tier. And I think a lot of what publishing, there was some of that in optometric publishing, but there wasn't enough of it. And there wasn't, so like that was our motto, was just insane quality content. And it still is, right? And if you go on EyesOnEyecare, you'll see like every featured image for every article is like hand illustrated by someone on a design team, and like all these little attentions to detail. And so I forgot what your original question was.
It's okay. Well, I was going to come back to it anyways. I wanted you to kind of finish that thought, because there's so much good stuff in there.
Yeah.
With the photographer, and that like having that kind of mindset to like the equivalent of sitting on the sidewalk waiting for a moment all day long. You're doing that in your content creation. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What I wanted to go back to, what I was about to interrupt you with, was I mentioned to you offline just this morning. I spoke with Jen Lyerly, and so Jen's got her blog idolatry.com or idolatryblog.com, and she gets a ton of hits and tons of views, and puts up, like, she doesn't put a lot of content, but it's like really good quality content. But like you talked about SEO, and that's ultimately what it is. She's still getting all these people reading these blogs from like 4 or 5 years ago, because she just had all the right content. But what is that in, you were doing that diligently. What was it that you were adding in there? What were the aspects? Let's say somebody's trying to write a blog today. They want to improve their SEO today. What are a few of those components that you knew that you had to make sure you had in every one of those pieces?
Yeah, SEO it's interesting because it's actually a very easy game to play. Like, there's so many good tools out there, like Moz and Ahrefs and like all those sites that like you look up keywords and you do that. But like SEO now has changed so much because there's so much competition. And now you have something like ChatGPT 3.5 or 4 coming out, where it's like easier than ever to create content. And so a lot of SEO is like first mover advantage, domain ranking, like all of those things. And like, if you're not in the game now, like you better have deep pockets, and you better be able to have like insane backlinks, really, really like, so you can get there. There's no doubt about it, but it is a harder game to play, and it is an important game to play. But it's for someone starting out new, it's all about long tail keywords. Like, you've got to find the keywords that, maybe there's only 100 searches a month, but you're going to rank number one for those 100 searches. And then you find another long tail keyword that's 50 searches a month, and you're going to rank number one. And if you do that enough, you're going to have a good amount of traffic. But good luck competing. We're all in the healthcare space. Good luck competing with Medscape and WebMD and Mayo Clinic and those types of things. Like, and now you're going to have your ChatGPTs and stuff like that. And like, that's just a whole new level of what's going to happen. So, SEO is part of that quality game, because Google's very good at understanding quality. And so like with our quality approach, with what we do with EyesOnEyecare, that plays into it for sure. But I think like that quality mentality, going back to the entrepreneurial thing, is just something that, like, for example, like you were at the house, like I'm redoing the garage a little bit, right? I wanted to put a gym in the garage. And everyone just kept telling me like, I was putting baseboarding in, and I was like painting and like filling holes, and like making it super nice, like thoroughly cleaning the floors, everything. And like, I just kept hearing, but it's a garage. Like, why do you care so much? It's a garage. It's a garage. It's a garage. And like, I don't know, it just plays into my mentality of like, I don't care what it is. Like, this is the level I want it at. And if you treat your life like that, which in some ways it's crazy and you'll like totally burn out doing it, but if you look at everything like that, and you apply it in a business mentality, like, you will have success probably. you know?
That's incredible. And I see that. Well, there's clearly that consistent theme there in your life, whether it's building a gym in the garage or doing your work. It reminds me of a story from, I think, Steve Jobs. And it was like when he was a kid and he learned something from his dad. I think that's how the story goes. Basically, they were painting the fence, and the back of the house, the fence just faced like the woods. Nobody was going to see it. But his dad wanted to paint the outside of the fence as well. And Steve was kind of like, well, why am I painting that? Nobody's going to see it. And he's like, because I know
Yep.
what it looks like.
Yep.
And that kind of mentality, that sounds like what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the story further continues. I brought that story up this week because someone was asking me, why do you care so much about this thing? And I said, well, it's the Steve Jobs thing. I've never heard the fence thing, but they designed the inside of Apple computers absolutely beautiful and flawless,
Right.
So like, and I think there's like stories of like Italian Renaissance painters and things like that like paint things or like, on the inside that no one will ever see.
Yeah.
And I think that says something about life in general, right? And like this idea to like beautify all things in your life and make beautiful and celebrate them and love them. And like that to me is important. I don't care if anyone sees it, and that's a problem when you own a house for the first time and you're trying to fix little things. Like,
there's a lot of spaces in your house that you're going to spend time beautifying.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, man. All right. Well, that's cool to see. That's the kind of thing I wanted to tap into because as much as we've talked and connected over the last few years and met in person, that's the kind of stuff I haven't really tapped into is like, where was your mind at in those early days? Like, what were you doing? So you were grinding, trying to create high quality content with the really high quality keywords to have super high quality SEO to get new grad optometry or covalent careers, more traffic. Then what happened? Was it just you doing it? Did you have a partner? And then when did it start to grow into more people?
Yeah. So like after the new grad optometry days, like new grad optometry was myself, and I did have a great team of like other ODs helping out, but everyone was just like part-time. It was smaller, it didn't do that much revenue, but I guess compared it to where we are now, but whatever. Covalent Careers was like the talent acquisition platform that we wanted to do across multiple healthcare fields. There were companies getting funded at really great valuations to tackle the talent acquisition problem in healthcare because it's a big problem. We thought we had the answer to solve it. It turns out that we didn't have the answer to solve it, not because it was a bad idea, but because the co-founders, which by the way was myself, my brother, who's our engineer, so he develops all the tech that's the EyesOnEyecare ecosystem and stuff you guys don't see. And then Brett Kestenbaum, who's one of my best friends, probably my best friend from high school, who's our CFO and COO. So we had like the perfect dynamic duo. And like to this day, we're like so good together.
That's
right?
Cool.
So when we started Covalent Careers, we were tackling that problem. We didn't want to pursue the talent acquisition across all of healthcare problem. You know why? Because it was boring to us. It was a lot of back office stuff. It was like boring pushing papers, and we were a creative bunch and we wanted to like, so we kind of, we pivoted from that, but it was the Covalent Careers thing where everything got super, super serious and it leveled up like a whole nother level because our aspirations for what we wanted to achieve got so much greater. And now you're looking at the pie in 3 ways. And so we just got like super, super aggressive. That's what I recall, I suppose, was just this new tune of, and then like, yeah, like at that point, like we were making like basically no money. And I'm like, Brett and I were like, we're done with patient care. He was a PT. He was a physical therapist. And we basically said like, we don't care what the stakes, like there's no more patient care. There's only this project forevermore. And when your back's against the wall, you burn all bridges to safety, pretty beautiful things happen, and it's only under those circumstances, if you're gonna, that things kind of flourish. And so now granted, we were doing okay, but like we took a hit for a little bit, right? You felt that. Mm-hmm. But it was like, and then lift off, and it takes that kind of dedication and devotion and stuff like that. And so those were like some of the elements. It's not necessarily the formula to success. I would like be super cautious of that, but that's what I remember is like the stakes just got a lot higher. Yeah. And yeah, we just really went all in and pushed ourselves. We almost went broke kind of like only once in our history. And it wasn't during COVID and it wasn't during these current, economic times. It was like when we were going wide across multiple healthcare fields, because that's like the big dilemma I see a lot of entrepreneurs make, is they want this sexy big business, they millions of dollars, and they don't realize, like, if they were to earn an extra $250,000 a year, how much happier, like, all their problems would be solved. They'd be totally happy, but they aim for like a $50 million idea versus like a $250,000 idea. And so they burn out, or they can't get there, or whatever it is. Right. So I think for us, and going wide across healthcare, which is a $500 million market, perhaps, or something, whatever it is, right? I don't even care anymore. I don't remember what that was, but whatever it was, like, that was making us spin our wheels, and we couldn't get where we wanted to be. Right. So we dialed it back, and we just focused on what we were doing in eye care, and we went, an inch wide and a mile deep versus a mile wide and an inch deep. Right. And so that was one of the big lessons for me. Everyone said it. I didn't believe them. Like, I was just like, no, you're wrong. But like, they were right. They were right.
Yeah, you kind of hear that consistently across most industries. People will tell you kind of go deep versus go wide, right? And but it's sexy to go wide. It's be like, I want to hit the entire market. I want to hit all of. But if you're trying to be something to everybody, you're nobody to. How's it?
Yeah,
you're like nobody to anybody. Or I can't remember how the saying goes, right? But that's really cool. So go back to talent acquisition for a second. Tell me what that means exactly.
Yeah, it basically means helping doctors find jobs, or helping practices find doctors. And there's a whole wide range of that. So like in nursing, for example, the way that the majority of that happens is through travel, like nursing. So these nurses, they do like 13-week placements where, San Diego let's take Washington. Washington's like, we don't have enough coverage in our hospitals. So we'll work with a company like EyesOnEyecare, which is a staffing company. They'll hire a bunch of nurses. They work for Aya, and then Aya contracts them out for 13-week travel placements. And they make a pretty good gross margin on it. Net profits are okay. But there is a huge multi-billion dollar market there. And so we weren't trying to do that in optometry. It'll never work. Like, I mean, it's kind of weird what's going on now, but it's still like that sort of thing doesn't work. But we were trying to do that in allied health and nursing and that type of stuff. And like, it's kind of just it's not that interesting of a field for us. Now we are still the biggest talent acquisition company in eye care, though. So like, EyesOnEyecare helps more optometrists find jobs than any other company in eye care. It's crazy, Herbie. You're like, every year, like, we've got 2 recruiters on the team and 1 salesperson just in that individual division. And like, every year it continues to grow and do amazing. And the reason is because it's part of a larger ecosystem. We have like a larger EyesOnEyecare kind of ophthalmology, optometry, talent acquisition, courses, CE, events, the whole thing. And so like
more things kind of feeding into it, right?
Yeah. But like, if you tried to develop going back to what we said before, if you try to like develop the whole ecosystem from scratch without just focusing on the next line track in the sand, you will have a much harder time than just, but the talent acquisition thing is cool. And I think that that's another thing for eye care professionals listening, entrepreneurial folks, like, you don't need to stay in eye care, by the way. There's like a lot of stuff in healthcare that's super, super similar, and you could flourish there.
That's an interesting. So you're saying for talent acquisition, you're saying there's other opportunities outside of eye care.
Even outside of talent acquisition, just if you know healthcare, there's a large healthcare entrepreneurial market, period.
Very interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, where do you begin? There's a lot of places. Like, you could subscribe to like Rock Health, which is like a newsletter that just talks about like companies getting funded, their Series A, and start there and look at what's going on. But I don't know. I mean, just in general, like patient care, managed care, the way that the system works is very similar. All the people you and I work with in industry, they constantly move laterally. Like, we work with J&J quite a bit, and they move within J&J and all the divisions. I have a friend who is in dry eye, and now he's in MS, doing MS drugs. And so like, if those people move with no problem, why can't we as entrepreneurs move with no problem? And so it just depends, though, right? Like, I'm not saying like go start another podcast in
Can you imagine?
Yeah. You may have an oncologist buddy, and like, there's, I don't know, there's like ways and sorts of stuff.
Well, that's interesting you say that. I don't think it would be appropriate for me to go start talking about oncology or podiatry or something, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm looking to try to branch out I've never really had a whole lot of clinical type of conversations on the podcast anyway. So I'm more like looking at ways to branch out into different industries. And I have with this podcast, like, let me bring on somebody from who's an athlete or somebody from, some other industry to talk about some parallels between eye care and that. But also within eye care, like rather than talking about just eye care, let's talk about the psychology. Let's talk about other things that we, sort of offshoots. I'm trying to explore that just within the podcast world. It makes sense that we should be able to explore that in other ways in the healthcare industry as well. That's cool. So,
Yeah.
you to me strike me as the right person. And I think you've created content along these lines of talking to if I wanted to talk to a person about anything in eye care that's not patient care, like if I wanted to get a job that's not patient care but still within eye care, I feel like you would be the right person to talk to. But like, let's say you have that, and it seems like these days there's a lot more people going into industry and these types of things. What advice do you have to somebody who's, let's say, a new grad who's like, I don't know if I'm an optometrist. It makes sense. I went to school. I got trained all these years, but I'm not 100% sure if patient care is my thing. Like, what do you suggest to that person?
I mean, it's, I get that
Call
question
me.
a lot. It's like one of the only questions I still get. You talked about me. I've moved into the shadows, which, by the way, is very intentional because
Yeah.
in order for the company to scale, I need to move into the shadows, both as in appearances like this, which I don't do anymore, like ever. To the point I don't even get asked to do them, which is like totally cool. I don't mind, but also even within my own team, it's important for me to not have hands on everything, let alone eyes on everything. No
I
pun.
knew that was coming. I
Yeah.
knew that was coming.
But like it's really important for scalability. Now, still I'm present. I'm a servant to everyone in the company, no matter what, I'm there for them. But in order to allow for scale, I think it's important for at least what our goals are and what my goals are and what we're trying to do. It's important. Now, there's a whole influencer generation, and that is not the answer unless you want to get out of the way, though. And like Emily Seitz and I just had dinner the other night, and like this was like the same conversation of like, how do you scale and how do you do these sorts of things? And there's a lot of really good examples of how to get out of the way and how to allow for that scale. But you asked again, I apologize. I went down an offshoot and
No,
totally
it's
forgot
fine.
what you asked.
This is what the whole podcast is about, man. Don't worry about the questions. The questions are just there to start the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah.
I don't even remember what I asked. And that was like, what do you say to somebody who's a new grad? And I
Oh, yeah,
think it
yeah.
might have even
That's
been
funny.
Emily that you had this conversation with a while back about
Yeah,
non-practice, non-patient care
yeah.
opportunities.
So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, there's definitely a market timing aspect to things. You're seeing more layoffs right now and more budget cuts. If
Mm,
you're not seeing that, I'm here to tell you that it's happening, right? And that if you want to learn why that's happening, just understand what interest rates are and how the Federal Reserve controls interest rates and what that means for money supply and inflation and that. And the best thing to watch Ray Dalia's video on YouTube, how an economic machine works or how the economic machine works. That'll explain
mm,
it. That's why we're seeing reduction of jobs, reduction of force at companies globally, not just in eye care. So now's not the right time. But when the time is right, getting into industry in eye care is great because the main reason there's a lot of opportunity is because of what CMS did, what happened with the Sunshine Act, right? With open payments reporting. Companies need to report what they pay to doctors. So you can't buy a doctor a vacation anymore or a golf bag. You just can't. It's
that's just too
illegal.
bad.
You can't do that. You can buy them dinners. You can buy. So like companies couldn't. Um, the only way that industry can really truly impact the doctor is through professional education, and that's the way it should be, right? It's let's educate you. Let's just do our best to make you better, which improves patient outcomes. And that was like kind of the Sunshine Act and open payments and like that whole thing. And you can read about it. But the reason that ODs would be great in industry is because they know education better than anyone. And
Right.
there's a lot of different roles there where you can be a top educator, whether it's forming education or working with KOLs, or you got to understand the way people work. You got to know who's who, so that is the game. It's not as much of a game of like, I'm going to go to XYZ company and do finance for them, or I'm going to do their marketing. Like there's
Right.
probably a better marketer than you. There's
Right.
probably a better finance person than you. So your slot in is likely in the professional education division, and it's educating doctors and it's making relationships with doctors. That is kind of the way. So if you want to know how to get there, you got to kind of get involved there, right? You've got to get involved in that education space. Are you writing? Are you doing guest appearances? Are you knowing who's who? Are you going to conferences and networking? Like, then your resume looks really good. Like, look around at doctors who have gone into those spaces and just like, I don't know, talk to them. So now if you want to go the route like I've gone, I created a different business rather than went to an existing company. And that's a total different ball of wax. That has to do with finding a market need, right? Like, where is a deep, deep, true need? And can you legitimately fill that need? And the way to find out if there's a need is the same thing back to the Lion Tracker's Guide to Life by Boyd Vardy, which is just worry about the next track in front of you. Like, we're building a new product now. Can't give out too much information because I don't even know what the thing's going to be. I'll just sound like an idiot. But like, I'm so tempted, Harbier, to just like get to what this thing is going to look like and how it's going to work. And like, I forget I need to go and like take certain friends to dinner or go talk to them and just ask them questions and go, tell me more. What do you mean by that? Not, well, do you think that this feature would be cool? No, it's not. Like, you've got to, like, there's all books on user studies and user testing and like how to understand what someone wants. And you don't want to get your leading questions in the way and screw it up, you know?
Right.
So it's finding that need through like the right types of questions without giving like, this is what I want to develop. Will you like it? Yeah, I'd like it. And then they don't buy it, you know?
Of course.
So there's a spidey sense you got to have around that sort of thing, I think.
And that develops from, like you just said, having those conversations, being around the people, I think going to conferences and seeing what's happening. Like, you can find sort of spot some trends, and then gaps in the market in different places, and then have the willingness to kind of move towards something and take some action. Like you said, take somebody out to dinner, have a conversation. It's all about,
like, look at what Joseph Allen did. Like, I was listening to his episode before I jumped on, and I met him for the first time at Expo, and we actually kept bumping into each other. He's a cool guy, but like, he found like a beautiful need, and he focused on consumer side. I think first and foremost, I don't want to tell his story. I'm not exactly sure, but that's where I first saw him, was doing consumer focused videos. And like, oh my God, like, what a good angle. Like, none of us were focused there ever. Like, but yet that's what we do as ODs, is nonstop consumer stuff. And so, he obviously has the knack for it and the skill set and everything, but like, he saw an opportunity there. And, I don't know how he followed the track exactly, but it is about that one step in front of the other, not making a giant leap,
Yeah. Joey's great, man. Joey's great. Shout out Joe. I love everything he does. He's such a genuine, nice guy. But he reminds me a little bit of you in that same principle of like making sure, like painstakingly, and sometimes almost to your own detriment, like making sure everything is just done so right.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about it, and he's like, oh, I wish I wasn't so like I wish I didn't need to, right? But it looks so good and it sounds so good. Nobody can compare in quality to what he does unless you're going to go hire somebody and spend tens of thousands of dollars. Now, he's probably spent that on his equipment, but like, he spent hours and hours and hours, right? He does it like nobody else does it.
So you'll have no margin left,
Yeah. No, he's doing amazing, man. And I wish him all the success and everything he's doing. Actually, I got a chance to sit down with him in New York and record an episode. So I'm going to be hopefully he'll actually publish that conversation. We'll see. We'll be like, man, our beer just talked about gibberish for an hour. Can't use this. But anyways,
we'll always see. Something though. Like, it will always evolve. It doesn't stop. That is the driving force of life. Like, there will be something new. And just like talking about interest rates, like, the monetary cycle is like this for a reason. And so, there will be your time to strike. And so, like, whoever's thinking of the next entrepreneurial idea out there, I don't know, hit me up. See what you got.
It. That's what I was ultimately, the conversation was going to lead to. Just give me a call. Let's talk. I knew that. I knew it. All right. Tell me when. Let's get back on to the new grad Covalent Careers EyesOnEyecare journey here.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know you had something good? Like, when did you, like, can you remember that moment where you're like, we got something, I can turn this into something big? Like, you believed it from day one, but what did you see that was the proof?
It's a really good question. I'm definitely like, the way I was going to answer it is like, there was never that time. Like, it was always a insane level of belief. So nothing ever shocked me, right?
Yeah.
Like, even when we get wins today, I don't really get that excited, you know? It's like, it's short-lived. I definitely am harder. I'm like all about the losses. Like, how do we make that not happen again?
Yeah.
But I could definitely recall a few times where, like, the first sponsorship we ever signed with like Vision Source and Essilor for New Grad Optometry, like I remember recording myself on the call to like share with Brett or Josh or whatever it was, like after the fact, whatever call it was. And just to see like my reaction. I didn't share it with anyone, right? But it was like there were these little moments, and it was like first sponsorships. It was, the first time we ever sold a job listing on covalentcareers.com. Like we all, had all the analytics hooked up. We're waiting there. You see the person in the card. Okay, they're in the car. They're in the car for 30 seconds right now. Credit card payment successful, $199. And it was just like, yeah,
That's
So
awesome.
like, I think it was always just little things along the way. I don't know, man. I think I just kind of actually have blinders on in general, and I try to really not get distracted. I don't feel like I've made it. I never feel like it's just
Well,
a
that's kind
constant
of
work
leading
in
into
progress.
one of the next questions I was going to ask you, but I'll give my like 2 cents into that. Like, obviously my journey is very different than yours, even though we're in the same industry. But um, it's funny, you set certain targets in your mind. Like, when I hit this, I'm going to be like, I think I'm going to be like, I'm going to have made it, or I'm going to feel so proud of myself. And you get to the target, you're like, oh, that was nice, but like, it doesn't feel anything like what I thought it was going to feel like. I just have the next goal that I got to get to, right? And it's weird how it's so anticlimactic a lot of the times. When you hit a goal, you're like, all right, well, I got bigger goals than it. But it's because along the journey, when you set this X target, on the way there, you already set another target well beyond that. And so when you hit X, you're like, oh, that's like whatever. I got to get to the, and before you get to the next one, you've already set another one. And so yeah, it becomes a little anticlimactic when you hit them.
Well, there's something there though. Like we can do an hour on that topic
Yeah.
alone, because as we started to be successful, I realized, that it was, what's the Alice in Wonderland? Like the she's always running away. Like it's a constant treadmill. Like you never get there. And that's problematic though, because you're really never truly enjoying life, and the success
Mhm.
is always in the future, and you're always working towards something. And like, from a spiritual perspective, that like really, I was hitting these goals. I got the car, I got the watch, I got the thing, I got the material stuff. I was never, ever happy with it. Like it never did anything for longer than a couple of moments. At least
Mm.
for me, it didn't. And it really changed what I think, what I feel about like what's next and what's the next level. And I think that's like kind of counter entrepreneurial, but like, I don't want to just continue forever growing a bigger and bigger and bigger. Like it's not appealing to me. Like you saw, like I'm up here now, I'm trying to like slow down, do the opposite. Like, there's like deer around the property this morning, and like I want
Yeah.
to plant a vegetable garden, and I just want to return to more presence. And like, and maybe it's easy for me to say because I have accomplished quite a bit, and it feels like, okay, like by no means am I hanging it up. Like we're still going
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
force, but you definitely need to be careful about the constant, never ending, never happy, because I don't want anyone to be disappointed out there, but like the way you feel now is probably pretty close and similar to how you'll feel even if you accomplish all those things. Like your baseline happiness is in here, no matter what, like
Yeah.
you get all the things, doesn't matter. Like it's just how your perception is. But granted, I have like a very narrow slice, and my slice of how I grew up and the way things were, what was offered to me, what I had access to. That's just my story. And I don't know if growing up totally differently, if that journey feels, it's a generalization, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't want to totally generalize, but it is a very common thing out there to know that it is a very commonly explained thing out there that like accumulating more material things won't necessarily make you happier. It actually just makes you kind of upset, sad. Yeah.
You often do hear that from people who are successful or wealthy or whatever. I think, like you said earlier, or like a little bit on what you said earlier, is like you get a certain amount of wealth, and that kind of helps eradicate a lot of the things that might make you feel upset. Like
Yep.
you get rid of your debt, you can live kind of comfortably knowing you can buy the necessities in life and you're going to be safe and secure, right? Like Maslow's needs of hierarchical needs, whatever. You can meet all of those.
Yep.
Beyond that, like then having a ton more money, from what I understand, is doesn't necessarily bring you a whole lot more happiness. And I love one quote from Jim Carrey, which is like, I wish everybody could be rich and famous because then they would know that it doesn't bring you any happiness. Like
Exactly.
or like, I think that's such a cool quote. I like Jim Carrey a lot. One, because he's Canadian, but also because he's
He's
funny,
a deeply
successful
spiritual
guy
dude.
who's also kind of, what's that?
Deeply spiritual dude.
And spiritual. That was the last thing I was going to say. On top of that, like you think of him as a comedian, but he's very spiritual. So I love to kind of hear him talk.
But it's about
Matt,
the journey, though, I think. Like
yeah,
that. So
it is.
if you do it for the joy of just doing it, and that's your fruits, then you're really on the right track because you will create great things. You'll do it for probably pretty good reasons. And, that's the most fulfilling part to me. The rest is like kind of icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But it's been the whole journey for sure. That's the most rewarding part. Yeah, just get a reality check throughout the process because you just really don't want to miss what's most important. That's being present. And that's realizing that like the simplest things are where the happiness is.
Well, look, I'm in the middle of I'm taking 3 months off of clinical care to be home with the family. We just had our third baby.
Woo.
And when I say that number, I've actually been really shy to say that 3-month number out loud to a lot of people. And this podcast with Jen and now with you is the first time I've actually, I think, said it out loud on the podcast. So a lot, people will hear it. And like when I do say it, everybody's eyes go like, what? 3 months?
I think it's great.
Dude, there was a lot of anxiety in the beginning because I was like, I'm supposed to be at work. I'm supposed to be seeing patients, right? And taking the time to like, when I'm with my kids to be like, no, this is the important place that I need to be, and flipping that switch. And all of a sudden, like you can flip the switch and just be happy in the moment if you just decide this is the thing that I need to be doing right now, or this is the thing that's most important to me now.
Sure.
When I was talking to Joey in New York, he was like, I see something with parents where it's like they have something different in them, the way that they approach life. And I was like, well, when you have a child, like there's many situations, I'm sure you could, kind of attest to this. There's many situations where when the child needs something, nothing else matters. That's it. There's like a bubble, there's blinders, however you want to phrase it. Everything goes to black other than what is like, the kid's sick, I got to run out and grab medicine, or they're hurt or something, and when you get that kind of perspective, it helps to kind of change how you look at all these other material things and other things like that sometimes, if you let it, or if you're willing to let it allow you to see things differently. And that's something that definitely I've seen, and I continue to try to like, I'm looking this way because the kids are over there, but I try to let that kind of soak in as much as I can so I can forget about the work related anxiety and whatever, and just enjoy where I am right now. And now 2 months into the 3 months, I'm like, this is the best. I love it. It's awesome.
And you're probably going to come out of it with like, yeah, I guess just for me, when I was like really looking for insight, it was not about working more. It was absolutely about sabbatical time.
Yeah.
Whether, sabbatical is probably defined as like longer than a couple of days. And I'd be
Right.
like, I just need a day or two, Now 3 months, I mean, you're going to come out of it rejuvenated and probably do your best work.
I think so. I might still be lacking sleep though. I'm not, 3 months off right now doesn't mean a vacation.
Yeah.
Not sleeping all that well, but like, it's just nice to just be here, and be present.
Yeah, my daughter just turned 1, and I think that was a big reason for my kind of a bit of a waking up of like focused on way different things, way different priorities.
Yeah.
But hey, until you have your kid, like keep doing you.
Hey, the funny thing is some people are able to tap into that before they have kids or without kids, right? They're able to tap into like how I just put the blinders on, focus on where I am and what I'm doing right now. I was never very good at that. My mind was always in a lot of different places. I've trained myself to like when I'm with my kids to like be with my kids, and I try to take that energy and apply it to other things now. I'm getting better at it, but it takes time for me. Matt, before I go on to the last couple questions I want to ask you, I always stop here to ask how can people get in touch? Now, the problem is that you've become a recluse and like hidden yourself out in the woods. So I don't know if you want people to get in touch with you. But if somebody wanted to learn about you, what would they do? Where would they go?
Yeah, it's to learn about me. I don't know, probably I don't have too much out there. I guess you can probably Google and then go down, maybe my name and optometry, see what comes up. I put out some content and definitely done a few little guest things here and there. I don't really maintain any social media presence or much like that, but obviously if you want to get in touch, Matt at Covalent Creative, that's the name of the company, covalentcreative.com. Just email me. That's cool. Happy to say hi. And
what's your Instagram handle? I know you don't use it all that much, but
yeah,
Dr. Matt
Matt
Geller.
Geller. I literally email me before you hit me up. Before you DM me. Yeah, at Dr. Dr. Matt Geller.
Dr. Matt Geller. Got it. Yeah, like Matt has deliberately moved out into this beautiful like wooded area where you can't find it. I remember driving down the street. I was like, there's no house here.
No,
You have to like drive through the woods. Oh, okay. I see. Let's jump into the last two questions.
Sure.
There's two questions I ask every guest. And, to kind of like get a bit more of a deeper personal insight, if you will. First of those two is if we could hop in a time machine, punch in a date and time of a point in your life where Matt Geller was struggling with something personally, professionally, whatever. You can share that moment if you'd like to, but more importantly, once you get out of the time machine, what information or what advice are you going to share with younger Matt?
That's a good one. I'd say you'd rewind only 2 years ago, and it was at a crossroads of like, where is this going and what is the point? Very much an existential moment, right? Before my daughter was born, the crossroads of like that and the company, just insane amount of work, hitting, bigger and bigger levels, and just kind of like questioning, like, what is this just going to keep going like this? What's the point? And it is really like deep stuff, the spiritual level stuff. And the advice I'd give that person is that, as cheesy as this may sound, it's all love. That's what the universe is made of. And if you take a risk and you trust in it and you come to grips with what your reality is, it will catch you, right? You can fall and it will catch you. It'll be a soft, pillowy bed. And yeah, so it was like that conversation's even deeper, right? But it was definitely this like, because I was like, I guess 35. So, it felt like a death of this old life leaving, no kids, like more time than ever. And it's just a transition point. And those maybe who are younger, who are about to hit their like mid 30s may find that they're going through something similar. Plus like moving, knowing that I didn't want to stay in San Diego, it like all kind of hit. And it was just like having faith that like this, what we're all experiencing is just a beautiful thing. It's made of love at its essence. And yeah, as cheesy as that sounds, like just being honest, that's what got me through it. Yeah.
Honesty is what we want, man. And love that's great. And the cheesy stuff is the good stuff these days. I feel like I'm getting like Matthew McConaughey vibes here from this. I'm feeling that. Have you read his book, Green Lights by the? Yeah,
I did.
Good book. All right. Thank you for that answer, man. I appreciate that. Now, the last question is, and you touched on this already a little bit throughout the conversation, but everything you've accomplished to this point, you're a young man, and everything you've accomplished to this point already, how much of it would you say is due to luck and how much is due to hard work?
It's hard because I've honestly flip-flopped a bit. When I was younger, I believed it was 100% hard work. And I still have a really strong discipline about me and very strong work ethic. As I look back to, there's something there beyond just the work. And I don't know if it's necessarily a work thing or a mind state thing, like having a certain mind state. This is my journal entry this morning. I like sit at that little table before I start and I
Great
journal.
little spot, man.
Yeah. And I had like a moment yesterday. I was like working out at the gym in the garage, and the whole thing, and like the light was hitting just right. And I realized that like what I was experiencing was something I visualized back when I was studying abroad in Nottingham, England, right? I had like visualized something very similar and how that potentially had manifested into what I was experiencing.
Wow.
However many years later. And so the journal entry was about, what am I thinking now? What am I visualizing? What am I manifesting? Because there may be a delay there. It's coming, you know? And so I'm very torn between like the discipline and the hard work and the feeling of control. But I've also gone a much more spiritual path as a person. And I'm much, much more connected with that side. And that's, like I said, that's like a whole, we can like go down that side of things. And I wouldn't even be able to speak clearly on it. It's like a very complex topic, right? But I feel like there's something there that's beyond just the hard work. And maybe it's, you know, just happenstance and luck and things like that. But to give you like the one answer, it does come down to just really, really strong discipline and really strong work ethic if you're going to play this game. And if you do, and you do it right, and you do it by the book, and by the book, I mean like this topic has been extensively written about. Like read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Like you really don't need to listen to anything else ever from me, from you. Not just kidding. Listen to RB.
No, it's serious. It's true though.
But
I
like
have it right there. Yeah.
yeah, if you they've been written about, you can tap in, and that is the Bible, that is the guide. And so I would lean on that answer. Yeah, discipline, hard work, and just on the grind.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. And there's and the universe, I like that. And so here's what we're gonna do. The next time you're out, you're gonna like chop wood or something, call me. I'm gonna come. We're gonna chop wood out on the property, and we're gonna have that conversation, and we're gonna
Yeah,
record it. I
now
think
we're
that's the
talking,
perfect
man.
time to do it.
Yeah,
Right. And then we'll talk about the universe and, you know, the other energies and
that's
all
me.
of that kind of stuff. All that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. I'd
if
love to
you
do
want
that.
to, shoot me an email. We'll talk about that topic all day.
We'll
And
plan
on
that.
our Alan Watts and our Ram Dass and our Terrence McKenna and all that good stuff. All the
Awesome, man.
spiritual teachers, Rupert Spira. I mean, that's like, I don't know, for what it's worth. And those listening who may not have, like, maybe you're more religious, maybe you're more spiritual, maybe you're more whatever you are. I think that there's something really important there in general for just like general fulfillment and happiness in life. And it brought me a lot of just a lot of fulfillment and a lot of happiness. And it showed me that like beyond building the company and beyond the work, there's also like really, really important things. And yeah, for what that's worth, you know?
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that. And it's nice to kind of hear that side of things too, because obviously you've been diligent. You got the work ethic to start this company from the ground up. You're entrepreneurial minded, but you also have the balance of, you know, understanding that the universe has its own sort of journey and path for you as well.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember. I think it's Robin Sharma was saying something along the lines of like, you know, the universe probably essentially has your fate or your destiny kind of planned for you. You can kind of, you know, chart your path to it, but ultimately you end up kind of in that place. So enjoy the journey more than the ending, like you've said so many times already. I appreciate it. Like I said, like you said already, we can go back and forth on this stuff. Let's stop now.
We're not qualified, man. We're not
qualified. We're just two dudes sitting in like our office space, like pretending to be, you know, Dalai Lama and stuff.
But hey, if you know, like I'm all about, like, that's one of our guiding philosophies at the company is like honest, open, truth, and transparency. I just know no other way. And so like, if you're going to ask me that question, I'm just giving you the real answer. You know, I'm not going to be like, oh, there was like this, you know, hard time when we were like, you know, had this much money in the bank, and like, that's just it. And I think that that's really important to connect with people, and to also, it's important from a business perspective to let your true self be known. It's important from a health of the universe. If you want to go to that end of the spectrum, like, just be you. And that's another key, I think, to also like, you are like what you're doing with the podcast, what Joe's doing with the YouTube stuff, like finding your niche and being you and being absolutely like shameless and opening up to that true nature of who you are is critical for success, especially as of late. And the way that, like, you know, media is out there, and the frequency and the volume and the customization, like, you've got to be that unique person, and you are unique. Just don't front it with something else. But that's also not my area of expertise. I'm behind the curtain.
Well, no, but that's probably the most important lesson that I've learned, and I'm still working on, but I feel so much more comfortable in my own skin now as I'm slowly kind of leaning into this, being your own self, your authentic self, and like not trying to pretend to be something else. You know, I'm happy to be transparent about this kind of stuff, and I'm going to have a series of conversations about this, about like kind of the behind the scene, like what it's like behind the camera, or like behind the scenes and social media kind of stuff that we create, and what real life is actually like compared to what we see. You know, I've always been a little bit like, oh, I want to be more out there, and I want my face to be seen, and I want to be part of that conversation. And now, like yesterday, I was at a meeting and there was a bunch of people there that I would normally, like a couple of years ago, I'd be like, I want to go sit next to that guy so I can make sure I talk to him. I just went and found an empty seat over wherever. I was like, I'm good, man. I got to do me, you do you. Eventually something will happen. Of course, those conversations happen anyways. But being that natural, authentic you, who you are, and not trying to like put that facade on is so important. You save yourself a bunch of wasted energy trying to pretend to be something that you're not, or trying to overexert yourself. It's so important to do that. Now, that's coming from somebody who does put their face out there a lot. It's very important to be as close to your genuine self as you can.
Yeah. No, well said, brother. Well said.
All right. Any final words? I know you've given so many words of wisdom. Any more like spiritual, contextual?
Dude, you got it behind you. That's the weird part, the synchronicity. I'm here talking about love, and I got I love dad and eyes, coffee, and love. Like you know, it just the universe smiles back at you, you know? That's my words of wisdom.
Yeah.
No, I think like keep a lookout for what we're doing. Like I think if people ask where we're at in our evolution, we're about halfway done. I think we've got some incredible, cool stuff coming out. And for all like the softness I'm bringing to the conversation, we're like absolute, like still ruthless monsters wanting to, achieve the goals and build an amazing company where people love to work. And like our team currently is like absolutely incredible. And so I don't know, I love that stuff. To me, it's a bit of like a game in a good way. But yeah, keep an eye out. I think we've got some really cool stuff, and always happy to keep in touch. Shoot me an email.
Thanks, brother. I love what you're doing. I love that tenacity, man. I love that.
Yeah.
You got, like I said, you got the balance. You need that understanding the invisible stuff that's going around, but having that tenacity and the grind and the hard work. You got that for sure. So thanks for sharing that, dude. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in, as usual, to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. Whether you are listening on Apple, Spotify, watching on YouTube, wherever it is, take a screenshot, throw it up on Instagram, or put a link on LinkedIn or whatever, and let people know that Matt and I had this conversation, talk about this man and everything he's doing. Again, there's just like that entrepreneurial mindset. I know that so many people out there, so many of our colleagues have it. I hope this kind of sparks something in you to kind of take that first step and do that Lion Tracker's guide to the real world and start to kind of get out there. So thanks again, guys. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.